Long ago the stars whispered a warning. They spoke of a species that burned worlds, conquered darkness, and built empires from nothing but dust. A race so fierce, so determined, that even death itself could not silence them. They were called humans. Some said they were wild, untamable, creatures of passion and fury. Others called them brave, unstoppable, impossible to kill. But in the age of the Galactic Union, those were only stories. Slow zoom over alien worlds, bustling cities, peaceful fleets. For over 1,000 years, the Union taught that humanity was a myth. A bedtime tale told to scare young cadets: behave or the humans will come for you. In the great academies of the Union, professors laughed at the very idea. No one had ever found their homeworld, their DNA, or even a trace of their technology. They were ghosts, legends from a more violent time. Seen, a holographic map of the galaxy, the Sol system marked as extinct. The record said humanity's cradle was a planet called Earth, a small blue world that destroyed itself in its own wars, a foolish, primitive species that burned too brightly, too fast. So the galaxy moved on. Peace reigned. The Union prospered, united under the belief that the age of monsters was over, until one day, a signal came, cut deep space. A lonely probe drifts through the void. A deep space probe drifting near the outer dark, the unmapped edge of the galaxy, a region where light itself seemed afraid to travel. The probe caught something, a sound, a message, repeating over and over across every frequency, a simple phrase: "We are returning." At first, no one believed it. The scientists thought it was static, a trick of the cosmic winds. But the signal kept repeating, strong, rhythmic, human, and then it changed. Coordinates appeared in the transmission, a location far beyond any known route. Seen, Galactic Council chamber full of alien delegates. The Galactic Council gathered in emergency session for the first time in centuries. Representatives of 100 worlds crowded into the hall, their voices sharp, their faces pale. Admiral Zyler of the Threxian Dominion hissed, "If this is real..." Then the myths were true. The humans survived. The Council fell silent. No one wanted to believe it. But deep down, every species remembered the old warnings, the ancient fear that once drove entire civilizations to hide behind treaties and laws. The Union voted to investigate. So a fleet of scouts and diplomats was dispatched, small, fast, and heavily armed. They were told to make contact if possible, and if not, erase the threat. Seen, a fleet entering the black mist of the outer dark. The ships vanished into the void. Days passed, then weeks. No signal returned. Their tracking beacons died one after another, like candles snuffed out by an unseen hand. The outer dark swallowed them whole. And in the silence that followed, the Union began to panic. Cut, a sensor officer aboard a Union monitoring station. Months later, at the far edge of known space, a lonely Union listening post caught an impossible reading: a single vessel, large, damaged, but moving with purpose. It wasn't broadcasting a Union code. It wasn't alien. Its signature was human. Seen, the reveal. As the ship came closer, the sensors confirmed it. Human design, human architecture, human firepower. A warship from another age. Its hull was ancient, scarred by centuries of battle. Parts of it glowed red from re-entry burns. Others were patched with unfamiliar alloys. Yet somehow, it still lived. The nameplate on its side read, USS Vengeance. Seen, inside the Union Command Center. Panic spread through the command halls. Officers shouted, reports collided, and every monitor blazed with warnings. "Impossible," one admiral whispered. "That ship's class was destroyed before the Union even existed." Another replied, trembling, "Then where has it been all this time?" The Vengeance didn't answer hails. It simply moved forward, slow and steady, its engines pulsing like a heartbeat. Then every screen in the system flickered, and a voice spoke. Dramatic pause, a deep, human voice through static. "You forgot us," the voice was calm, cold, heavy with meaning. "We remember everything." Then the signal cut out. Seen, alien crews watching, terrified across the galaxy. That message spread like wildfire. On trading stations, on news networks, in the minds of every species that had ever laughed at the human myth. Children asked their parents who the humans were. Elders whispered old stories they had sworn never to tell again. Stories of fire raining from the skies. Stories of a species that did not surrender. Stories of the day the galaxy was forced to unite because humanity refused to kneel. Now the myth was real, and it was coming back. Closing shot. The USS Vengeance moving past the camera, stars reflecting off its hull. Somewhere in the darkness, a forgotten empire was awakening. A ghost with the heart of a soldier, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy remembered what fear felt like. Opening scene. The Galactic Council chamber, lights dimmed, voices echoing in panic. The chamber of the Galactic Union High Council had not been this crowded in centuries. Representatives from 100 worlds filled the tiers, insectoid diplomats chittering, scaled nobles whispering, and cold-blooded senators pulsing in color with anxiety. At the center of the circular hall, the holographic image of the ship rotated slowly. USS Vengeance, smoke-black armor, Terran markings, battle scars across every plate. A ship that should not exist. The council speaker, an old Ulathi scholar with translucent skin, raised his trembling voice. The signal was verified. The humans live. Silence. For several long seconds, no one dared to breathe. Scene. Cut to Admiral Xylar, Threxian military representative, rising to speak. Admiral Xylar's crimson crest flared open in alarm. If the myths are true, this is not a ship. It's a warning. Wherever they come, they bring fire. Others hissed in protest. A soft-voiced diplomat from the Nera worlds shook her head. We have no proof they're hostile. Perhaps they seek peace. Xylar turned his yellow eyes toward her. Peace? The last time the humans sought peace, half the Orion arm burned. Ask the archives of Korra. A murmur rippled through the hall. Everyone had heard of Korra. A world vaporized in ancient war long before the Union existed. A war humans had supposedly fought. And won. Cut. A younger alien officer whispers to his commander, Admiral, if they truly vanished 1,000 years ago, how did they survive? No one had the answer. Some said the humans fled to another galaxy. Others believed they had built hidden colonies, waiting for the right moment to return. And now, that moment had come. Seen. Union Intelligence Headquarters, data streams flashing across holograms. The Union's best analysts studied the recovered transmissions from the Vengeance. The ship's design was old, from the pre-Union era, but modified beyond anything known. Its energy readings were off the charts. Its weapon systems alien in part, yet still unmistakably human. Someone somewhere had kept the Terran war machine alive. And then there was the message. You forgot us. We remember everything. Union psychologists examined every syllable. Was it a threat? A declaration? A promise? None could agree. But one thing was certain. The humans were not asking for permission to return. Seen, Union Fleet Briefing Room. Fleet Marshal DeKalb addressed the admirals via hologram. The Vengeance is currently in the Perseus Expanse, moving toward the Sol coordinates, the legendary cradle of humanity. We are dispatching a diplomatic envoy, supported by a defense escort. You will establish contact, confirm their intent, and if necessary, neutralize the threat. The room was silent. Everyone knew what neutralize meant. Seen. The diplomatic fleet departs. 20 ships left the dockyards of the core worlds, sleek cruisers of silver and gold, banners of peace fluttering from their hulls. But behind those banners waited plasma cannons, rail batteries, and soldiers who had been told to expect the worst. They entered the outer dark, and once again, communications fell silent. But weeks later, in the Union Command Center, at first there was hope. Faint energy readings, occasional pings from the fleet's transponders. Then, without warning, everything stopped, every beacon, every signal. Gone. A technician's voice broke the silence. We've lost contact with the envoy fleet, sir. Admiral Xylar leaned forward. How many ships? All of them. A cold dread filled the room. Seen, the first images arrive. Hours later, fragments of data began to appear, distorted visuals, fragments of wreckage, echoes of battle. Hull fragments floated through space, twisted and melted. One of the ships, the Seraphis, had been sliced in half cleanly, as if by a beam of impossible precision. No explosion. No distress calls. Just destruction. And on every remaining data core burned into the comm logs, a repeating message was found. Do not follow us. We are going home. Scene, Union Central broadcast, panic spreading across the galaxy. News of the disaster spread faster than the fleet had traveled. Billions watched the footage. Some refused to believe it. Others remembered the old tales and began to whisper in fear. Markets crashed. Colonies fortified. Border patrols reported strange ships moving in the dark. The myth had come alive, and the galaxy trembled. Scene, private meeting between Xylar and the council speaker. The old speaker stared at the dark hologram of Earth's coordinates. 1,000 years of peace, he said softly. And it ends with a ghost. Admiral Xylar's crest lowered in grim respect. Not a ghost, speaker. A survivor. He turned away, claws tapping on the metal floor. We should have erased their memory when we had the chance. The speaker closed his eyes. Closing scene. The outer dark. Empty void filled with drifting wrecks. Among the shattered hulls of the Envoy fleet, a single drone camera still drifted, its light blinking weakly. It caught one final image before fading. The USS Vengeance moving silently through the wreckage, its hull marked with scorch lines and alien symbols, trophies of war. It didn't slow down, didn't turn. It just kept going, straight toward the coordinates of Sol, and from its engines came the faint pulse of a message echoing again and again across the stars. We are going home. The stars were fading behind them. Before the great black silence of the outer dark, the ship USS Vengeance moved alone, a shadow cutting through eternity. Its hull groaned with age. Its armor bore scars from 100 unseen battles. But its engines burned steady, fierce and alive. On its bridge stood Captain Sarah Vale, descendant of the last Terran admirals. Her eyes were sharp, her face lined by years of war and exile. In front of her, the great window of the bridge shimmered with starlight. Beyond that light was home, a place she had never seen, but whose name she carried like a prayer. Set course for Sol, she said quietly. Let's go home. Scene, inside the ship's command deck. The crew moved in silence. They were not an army, not anymore. They were the descendants of survivors, wanderers who had grown up hearing the legends of Earth, a world that had destroyed itself long before their time. Some said the humans left because they had to escape the wars that tore their home apart. Others believed Earth had been burned by alien hands. No one truly knew. All they knew was this: humanity was not gone. It had been waiting. Scene. Captain Vale in her private cabin looking at an old Earth relic. On her desk lay a small cracked tablet. Inside it was a single recording, a voice from another age. If you're hearing this, then we failed. But remember who we were, Sarah. Don't let them forget the name of Earth. It was her great-grandfather's message, recorded the day before the last Terran fleet vanished. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down. The galaxy thought her kind extinct. They thought humanity was a ghost story. Soon they would remember. Scene, exterior. The Vengeance enters a star system covered in mist. After months in the dark, the Vengeance reached the edge of a dead star system. Scanners reported no activity, no life, no signals, no civilization, only silence and ruins. On the main display, the coordinates appeared. Sol system, the birthplace of mankind. The ship drifted past the frozen remains of old orbital platforms, rusted satellites tumbling in the cold. The once bright sun glowed weakly, dimmed by centuries of dust. Scene, bridge view of the planets. One by one, the planets came into view, Mercury, cracked and lifeless. Venus still wrapped in poisonous clouds. Mars buried under ice and silence, and then the third planet appeared, blue and brown, half covered in storm clouds. A world scarred but still breathing. Earth. The bridge fell silent. No one spoke. No one dared. For the first time in 1,000 years, humans looked upon their home. Scene, emotional music swells. Captain Vale whispered, "Home." But the scanners told a darker story. The planet's surface showed ruins, cities half buried, forests growing over metal. Oceans darker than before, radiation fading but still there. Earth was alive, but wounded. Scene, a sensor officer reports something strange. "Captain, I'm detecting signals, faint ones, beneath the surface," Vale frowned. "What kind of signals?" "Old Earth frequencies, very old. Some are automated, others responding to us." A chill passed through the bridge. For centuries, Earth had been silent. Now it was speaking again. The communications officer looked up. "Ma'am, it's not random noise. It's a command code." Vale stepped forward. "Put it on screen." The ancient code resolved into a phrase, written in old Terran text. "Stand by for reactivation." Scene: planetary surface. Deep underground, beneath the Earth's crust, machinery older than any living human began to wake. Buried reactors hummed to life. Satellites hidden under centuries of dust unfolded their panels. Moon bases powered up one by one. Systems built by the last generation of old Earth had been waiting for a human voice to call them home. Now that voice had come. Scene: from orbit. Lights flicker across Earth's surface from space. The crew watched as faint lights began to glow across the continents. Cities long dead flickered back to life. Energy grids powered up in sequence. The heartbeat of a world was returning. "It's impossible," whispered one of the engineers. "None of this should still be working." Vale smiled faintly. "They built it to last." Scene: a young officer looks in awe at the planet below. "Captain, are we really the last ones?" Vale looked down at the glowing planet. "We were never the last. We were the ones who refused to give up." Scene: sudden alert, sensors detecting movement. The calm was broken by alarms. "Captain!" New contacts incoming from the edge of the system. Dozens of signals, Union ships, fast armed and closing in. The Union had followed them. They couldn't let humanity rise again. Vale clenched her jaw. "They came to erase us again." She turned toward her crew. "Then let's remind them who we are." The Vengeance turned to face the approaching fleet, its old engines roaring like thunder. The humans didn't run. They never did. Closing scene: from space the camera pans over Earth, now glowing with life beneath the stars. The world that the galaxy had forgotten was awake once more, and somewhere deep within its oceans and ruins, something vast stirred. A network of machines, a slumbering defense grid, and a single buried command center that whispered to itself, "Welcome home, humanity." The planet below shimmered like a ghost resurrected. Blue oceans reflected the stars once more, and broken cities sparkled faintly under the returning power grids. The Earth had woken up, but the humans who gazed upon it were not the same ones who left it behind. They were the descendants of survivors, children of refugees who had escaped in the last days before the fall. They were born in cold metal ships, in the deep silence between stars. Their ancestors had fled the flames of Earth's final wars, carrying with them fragments of humanity's history, language and rage. Now, after 1,000 years of wandering, they had returned. Scene: Captain Sarah Vale on the bridge, staring down at Earth. Captain Sarah Vale stood at the window of the bridge, her reflection blending with the planet below. Her face was calm, but her eyes were storms. Her first officer, Commander Arin Malik, approached quietly. "Hard to believe it's real," he said. "After all the stories, all the maps and myths." Vale nodded slowly. "My grandfather used to say Earth wasn't just a place. It was a promise." "A promise of what?" Arin asked. "That one day humanity would come home, not as victims, but as conquerors of the dark." Her voice was quiet, but every soul on the bridge felt the weight of her words. Flashback scene: a dark ship drifting in deep space centuries earlier. Centuries ago, the Exodus fleet had fled the dying Earth. Dozens of colony ships carrying the last fragments of humankind. Engineers, soldiers, scientists, families, each bound for a different star. But one by one they disappeared. Some were destroyed by alien empires who feared the old human reputation. Others vanished into black holes, pirate raids, or madness. Only a few survived, small groups banding together on forgotten worlds. Over time, they built hidden colonies, trading with smugglers, salvaging what they could. They rebuilt the old Terran machines piece by piece. They taught their children the history the galaxy had erased, and when their numbers were strong again, they built a ship from the bones of 100 wrecks, the USS Vengeance. Scene: back to present, in the Vengeance's briefing room. The crew gathered around a holographic map showing the Sol system and approaching Union fleets. Commander Malik pointed at the red markers closing in. 30 Union ships detected, possibly more inbound. "They won't stop until we're Ash." Vale didn't flinch. "They think we're relics. Let's remind them what relics can do." A low murmur of determination spread through the room. They weren't soldiers by birth. Most had grown up in scattered colonies or asteroid belts. But every one of them had the same fire burning inside. They were descendants of fighters, of builders, of survivors. Humanity's bloodline hadn't weakened in exile. It had hardened, seen. A young ensign, Lyra, speaks up nervously. "Captain, what if they destroy us? If Earth falls again, we'll lose everything." Vale turned to her. "Listen to me, ensign. They can destroy ships, they can burn worlds, but they'll never destroy what we are. As long as one human draws breath, the fight continues." Her voice softened. "That's what makes us human. We keep going." Seen. The ship's war room as the humans prepare defenses. Below the ship, automated systems on Earth continued to reactivate. Old Terran defense satellites emerged from their orbits, aligning with military precision. The moon's surface opened to reveal cannons the size of skyscrapers. Subterranean bunkers came alive, their AIs rebooting after a millennium of sleep. The old world hadn't died. It had gone into hibernation, waiting for the children who had left to return. Seen, Captain. Vale visits the ship's memorial hall. The Vengeance had one chamber that every crew member visited at least once, the Hall of Names. Thousands of holograms floated in the dim. Lighter, the names of every human ship that had vanished since the fall of the Earth. Vale ran her hand through the air, stopping at one in particular. USS Dawnbringer, lost year 287 after Exodus. The galaxy had waited in fear and silence. Now the Union could wait no longer. In the great war halls of Valen Prime, admirals and politicians gathered around a vast holographic display, the Sol system glowing red at its center. "They've reactivated the Terran defense grid," one commander reported. "Earth is armed again." Murmurs filled the room. The Speaker of the Union, his silver tendrils shaking, rose slowly. "Then it is as the legend said. If they rise, they will not stop. They will rebuild and they will burn the stars once more." The words no one wanted to hear were spoken. A final vote was cast. Operation Silence, the total annihilation of Earth and all human remnants. Seen, fleet preparation, thousands of warships gathered at the edge of the core worlds, dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers, and destroyers from 100 species. Never before had such a force been assembled. Their mission: erase the myth before it became real again. Each ship bore the Union's crest of unity, but every soldier aboard knew the truth. They were not going to war with a threat. They were going to war with a nightmare. Cut to, aboard the USS Vengeance, Earth orbit, Captain Sarah Vale stood on the bridge, watching the approaching Union armada through a distant holo feed. The enemy fleet shimmered at the edge of the solar system, an endless swarm of light and steel. Her crew stood silent, each one staring at the impossible numbers. There was no chance of victory. Only defiance. Vale broke the silence. "They've chosen war. So be it." Seen, inside the ship's war room. Commander Arin Malik activated the tactical grid. A red wave of Union ships spread across the projection, dwarfing the few human vessels that orbited Earth. 2,000 ships, he said quietly. "Against?" Vale's tone didn't waver. "They think we're relics. They think fear will finish the job our ancestors started." She looked at the hologram of Earth behind her. "They're wrong. Fear built us." Seen, Union Fleet Command. Admiral Xylar, leading the assault, stared coldly at the blue planet in the distance. "All ships prepare orbital strike." "No survivors," his communications officer hesitated. "Sir, there are civilians on the surface." Xylar's crest lowered, his voice like stone. "There are no civilians in Legends." Seen, the first strike begins. From the void, the first barrage erupted. Thousands of plasma beams and kinetic slugs screamed toward Earth, blazing across the darkness like falling stars. The Union expected silence. They expected ruin. Instead, Earth answered. Seen, Earth's defense grid activates. Buried cannons across the moon came alive, glowing bright blue. Massive orbital platforms, hidden under ancient debris, powered on. From the atmosphere itself, the old Terran satellites locked onto targets, weapons of an age when humanity still dreamed of conquering galaxies. The Earth struck back. Beams of pure light tore through the void, cutting across enemy lines with terrifying precision. Entire Union cruisers vanished in white fire before they even realized they'd been targeted. One Union captain screamed over comms, "Those are pre-collapse weapons." "That technology is impossible." But the humans didn't care for impossible. They made impossible bleed. Scene: the USS Vengeance joins the battle. The Vengeance plunged into the fray, its ancient hull glowing with red fury. Its cannons fired in synchronized bursts, carving through Union destroyers like paper. Every shot, every maneuver was calculated and merciless. "Focus fire on their command ships," Vale shouted. "Make them feel it." Her crew obeyed without hesitation. Even as the ship trembled under enemy fire, their voices were steady. "Target locked. Weapons online." For Earth. The Vengeance's railguns unleashed a thunderous volley. 1, 2, 3 Union battleships vanished in molten clouds. Scene: Union admirals reacting in panic. On Xyla's flagship, chaos erupted. "Admiral, our vanguard is collapsing. Their firepower is ancient but devastating." Xyla's eyes flared with rage. "Pull back the flanks. Overload the planetary shields." But the damage was done. What was meant to be a quick extermination had become a slaughter, and not the one they expected. Scene: aboard the Vengeance. Commander Malik gritted his teeth as explosions rocked the hull. "We can't hold this forever." Vale didn't turn. Her eyes were fixed on the burning fleet outside. "We're not meant to hold, we're meant to show them." "Show them what?" Vale's voice hardened. "That myths don't die quietly." Scene: inside Earth's atmosphere, civilians watching the sky. On the surface below, humans stood on shattered streets, watching the heavens burn. The sky was alive with fire. Streaks of blue and red, lightning from orbital cannons lighting the clouds. Children pointed upward, seeing ships clash among the stars. An old man whispered, "We were forgotten." Not anymore. Scene: the Union's last desperate push. The Union fleet regrouped, focusing all their firepower on the Vengeance. Energy beams tore through its armor. Explosions ripped across its decks. Still, the old ship refused to fall. "Reactors overloading," shouted an engineer. Vale stood tall amidst the chaos. "Then let it burn. We'll take them with us." Scene: the final stand. The Vengeance turned its broken hull toward the Union flagship. Its engines roared like thunder. Every weapon fired in unison, a final blinding burst of fury. The blast tore through the enemy's command ship, vaporizing it in a sphere of white fire. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield, scattering the remaining Union ships into disarray. Scene: silence returns. When the light faded, half the Union fleet was gone. Earth's orbit burned with wreckage. The Vengeance drifted, silent, its engines dead, its crew battered but alive. Captain Vale's voice crackled through the static, a transmission sent across all frequencies. "To the Galactic Union. You feared a myth. Now you've met it. We are humanity. We remember everything." Closing scene. Earth glowing through the smoke of battle. The planet turned slowly beneath the wreckage, scarred, but still alive. And as the surviving humans stared at the ruined sky, they felt something no generation before them had felt. Not fear, not despair, but pride. The myth had risen. And the galaxy would never forget the day Earth answered back. The void was silent again. Debris floated across the Black Sea, fragments of alien dreadnoughts, shattered hulls, drifting bodies wrapped in glowing armor. But the silence was a lie. Deep within the ruins of the USS Vengeance, life still stirred. Sparks rained down the bridge. Crew members crawled through the smoke, pulling the wounded from broken consoles. The old warship creaked like a wounded beast, every system failing, yet still alive. Captain Sarah Vale stood amid the chaos, her face half lit by flickering flames. She looked out the shattered viewport, where the Earth glowed behind the drifting wreckage. "Status report," she said quietly. Commander Aaron Malik limped forward. "Shields gone. Reactor unstable. Half the crew's dead." Vale nodded once, her voice steady despite it all. "And the Union?" Malik brought up the tactical display, a cloud of red dots reforming at the edge of the system. "They're not done. Reinforcements are coming." Vale's eyes narrowed. "Good. Let's remind them what war means." Scene: Union reinforcements arrive. Across the black, the second wave of the Galactic Union fleet dropped from hyperspace. 1,000 new ships, their engines blazing like suns, their transmissions filled every channel. Surrender and submit. Humanity's return ends today, but no answer came. Only the faint echo of static. Then, as if answering the challenge, the surface of the moon flared alive. Hidden bunkers opened. Massive turrets rose from ancient craters, glowing with the blue heat of forgotten reactors. Laser grids swept across the sky, locking onto targets. A signal pulsed from Earth to orbit, a single code phrase. Archangel Protocol. The defense network woke up completely. Seen, the Earth strikes back from the atmosphere. Swarms of drones erupted. Thousands of sleek, black crafts built for planetary defense. They moved like a living storm, weaving between ships, tearing through Union formations with surgical precision. The Union admirals shouted in disbelief. Where are they getting this firepower? Those are automated systems. That's pre-collapse AI. But it was worse than that. Humanity's weapons didn't just fight, they learned. Every hit, every maneuver, every mistake made by the Union fleet was recorded and counted within seconds. The longer the battle went on, the smarter the human network became. Seen. On the ground, Human Command Base, Earth. Beneath the ruins of old London, the Earth Defense Command had awakened. Hundreds of underground control rooms glowed with new life. Screens flickered with orbital readouts, tracking the chaos above. Technicians worked furiously, reconnecting ancient power lines and reactivating old satellites. One of them whispered, "We were supposed to be extinct." Another smiled faintly. "Extinction's just a pause between battles. Seen, the Vengeance fights again." Up above, the USS Vengeance roared back to life. Its engines flared as engineers rerouted emergency power to the reactors. Metal screamed as broken armor plates fused shut. The AI core, an ancient Terran intelligence known as Erebus, flickered online. "Captain Vale," the AI's voice rumbled, cold and calm. "Reactor output is unstable. Estimated time before total failure, 20 minutes. Then give me 19 of hell," Vale replied. The Vengeance surged forward. The battered ship moved with terrifying grace, darting between enemy lines, cannons blazing. Each shot split Union ships in half. Each maneuver defied logic and fear. It was as if the ship itself refused to die before its vengeance was complete. The stars were quiet again. Where once thousands of ships had clashed, only drifting wreckage remained. A graveyard of light and metal. The Galactic Union fleet, once the most powerful force in known space, was gone. Half destroyed, the rest scattered and broken. And at the center of it all, floating amid the ruins, was what remained of the USS Vengeance. The ship was silent. Its hull was torn open, its engines dead, its once bright nameplate half melted away. Yet inside something still flickered, faint blue lights in the core chamber, pulsing like a heartbeat. The ship wasn't finished. Not yet. Seen inside the Vengeance's core chamber, the AI Erebus awoke for the last time. Its processors flickered with static. Half its systems burned out. All around it, the ship's corridors were silent. Bodies resting at their stations. Crew who had refused to leave. Through damaged sensors, Erebus saw Earth turning below, its clouds tinged orange by the fires of battle. The planet had survived. That was enough. The AI accessed the captain's final command. "If we fall, they must know. The galaxy must remember us," Erebus began transmitting, seen across the galaxy. At first it was just a whisper, a faint signal spreading through subspace. Then it grew stronger, unstoppable, piercing through every communication channel, every frequency, every corner of the galaxy. From the frozen worlds of the Varnak to the glowing cities of the Threxian Empire, the message reached everyone, a voice, human, calm, resolute, and eternal. "This is Captain Sarah Vale of the Terran warship Vengeance. For 1,000 years you've told stories about us, monsters, conquerors, myths. You said humanity vanished, that we burned ourselves to ash, that we were too wild, too dangerous, too free." The voice paused and heavy, deliberate. "You were right about one thing. We are dangerous, but not because we seek war. We are dangerous because we remember, seen alien worlds listening." In the great amphitheaters of the Union Council, diplomats froze mid-speech. In the market squares of distant colonies, traders stopped, listening to the broadcast that echoed from orbit. On the war-torn world of Zethek, a young soldier turned to his commander. "Is it really them?" His commander, old enough to remember the stories, whispered, "No myth ever spoke like that." Seen, the message continues. You erased our name from your books. You called us ghosts, a story to frighten your children. But myths don't die. We built worlds, then lost them. We fought wars, then learned peace. We fell into silence, but in that silence we remembered who we were. The voice grew softer, not anger now, but something deeper. Pride, sadness, defiance. We do not seek revenge. We do not seek conquest. We only seek to live, free as we always have. You can fear us. You can hate us. But never again will you forget us. Seen on Earth, survivors listening. Far below, deep under the ruins of old London, the surviving humans heard the message too. Crackling from broken comms, Vale's voice filled the underground chambers. Tears fell freely. Mechanics, soldiers, civilians, everyone stopped to listen. One of the engineers whispered, "She did it. She made them remember." Another, staring up at the ceiling, murmured, "She gave us back our name." Seen Union Command. Valen Prime. In the heart of the Galactic Union. The High Council gathered again, silent and pale. The message played on every display, every public broadcast, unstoppable. Admiral Zyla sat rigid, his claws digging into the table. The voice echoed through the chamber. "We are humanity. We do not fade. We endure." When it ended, the hall remained still for a long moment. Then, one of the younger delegates whispered the words that no one dared say aloud. "We should have left them alone." Seen, the end of the transmission. The final seconds of the message flickered through static. Vale's voice faded, softer now, almost like a ghost carried on the solar wind. To those who hear this, remember our story. Remember that once there were humans who stood their ground. And if the darkness ever comes for you, remember how we burned. Then silence. No more signal, no more heartbeat. The Vengeance's reactor finally went cold. Seen, the galaxy reacts. In the days that followed, the message became legend. Pirates whispered it in the void between stars. Soldiers carved it into their armor. Scholars debated it endlessly. Was it real or just an elaborate trick? But the proof remained. The wreckage of the Vengeance, still orbiting Earth, still carrying the Terran flag scorched into its hull. And slowly, worlds began to change. Old laws forbidding the mention of humanity were repealed. Young cadets studied Terran tactics, and some even spoke of forbidden hope. If one ship survived, maybe more did. Closing scene, deep space, far from Sol. In the dark beyond known space, a listening post blinked awake. Its sensors caught a faint pulse, a human signal, weak but alive. A voice, distant and worn, whispered through static, "This is Colony Ship Odyssey. We heard your call. Terra, we're coming home." The stars had grown quieter. The Galactic Union, once proud and unshakable, now carried scars that no technology could hide. Whole fleets lost, worlds trembling at the memory of a single system. Sol, the name human was no longer a myth. It was a warning. And a promise. Yet amid the silence of space, something extraordinary happened. Against all odds, Earth lived, and the ashes of the old world had begun to bloom again. Seen, Earth reborn. Where cities once lay in ruins, new lights now shone. Vines crawled over broken towers, wrapping steel in green. Solar grids lined the coasts, drawing power from sun and tide. And on the plains of old Africa, a great city rose. The first capital of the Terran Union. Humans from every surviving outpost had returned. From deep space colonies, hidden research stations, even ships thought lost for centuries. They came home carrying the last sparks of humanity's scattered flame. Children were born under blue skies again. For the first time in 1,000 years, laughter echoed on Earth, seen the rebuilders. In the command tower overlooking the new capital, a woman stood watching the dawn. Her hair was silver now, her face lined by age, but her eyes burned with the same fire that once lit the stars. Admiral Lyra Vale, granddaughter of Captain Sarah Vale, the hero who sent the final message of the Vengeance. Every morning, Lyra listened to that recording, the words her ancestor had spoken as the galaxy burned. "We are humanity. We do not fade. We endure." It was more than history. It was their creed. Behind her, a young officer entered, carrying a data pad. "Ma'am, the colony ships from Kepler 9 have arrived. 40,000 settlers ready to begin terraforming Mars." Lyra smiled faintly. "Good. Every red world should remember we were here." Seen, across the galaxy. While Earth rebuilt, the rest of the galaxy changed too. Some species still feared humans, calling them ghosts of war. Others admired them, studying their resilience, their impossible ability to rise after every fall. The Threxian Empire, once humanity's loudest enemy, now sent envoys and trade fleets. Even they had begun to whisper the same words heard across the stars. The humans don't conquer. They return, seen the Memorial of the Vengeance. Orbiting above Earth, the wreck of the USS Vengeance still floated, a monument preserved in silence. No one dismantled it. No one dared. Every year, shuttles arrived from every colony to visit the site. Pilgrims drifted through its broken halls, laying small metal plaques inscribed with names of their ancestors, names once lost to time, now remembered again. In the ship's ruined bridge, a faint blue glow remained, the last fragment of the AI Erebus, endlessly replaying the captain's message. If the darkness ever comes for you, remember how we burned. It was no longer a warning. It was a vow seen, the return of the lost. Then, one quiet morning, Earth's long-range sensors detected a signal. At first it was dismissed as background noise, faint, distorted. But when the data cleared, 3 words appeared on the screen. This is Odyssey. The lost colony ship Odyssey, missing for nearly a millennium, had survived. It carried over 50,000 humans, descendants of those who fled the old wars. Their message played in every Terran city, echoing across continents and skies. To all who hear this, humanity endures. We found worlds beyond the rim. We built, we learned, we lived, and now we come home. Across the world, celebrations erupted. Fireworks bloomed in the night sky. Children shouted the word that had once been forbidden, human, seen the new dawn. A week later, the Odyssey fleet appeared in Sol orbit, colossal ships gleaming in the sunlight, carrying the legacy of 1,000 years of exile. As their engines flared, the skies of Earth filled with golden light. Thousands gathered below, staring upward as the first colony ships descended through the clouds. In that moment, the myth truly ended. Humanity was no longer a ghost. It was a civilization reborn. Seen, addressed to the galaxy, from the rebuilt United Terran Council, Admiral Lyra Vale broadcast a message to every world that could hear. We are the descendants of those you called extinct. We are the voice that your ancestors feared, and your children will remember. We come not as conquerors, but as witnesses to remind the galaxy what survival looks like. We will rebuild. We will explore, and we will never fade again. Her final words echoed across the stars, carried on every frequency. To all species, great and small, this is humanity. We are home. Seen, the galaxy reacts. The transmission changed everything. Across the galaxy, statues of old human warriors were raised. Schools began teaching Terran history again.